Okay, yeah, I think we are good to go. Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I saw some videos you posted, some tutorials from your symphony you posted recently on your YouTube
Yeah.
also. Yeah, very good tips. I
Yeah,
I
there's some stuff I've been meaning to post for a while, and yeah, I thought it'd be cool little tips and tricks to get out there for the world to check out.
nice. They were very helpful to me also. So yeah, um, I wrote down some questions I'm going to ask you for this.
Okay,
Hopefully,
yeah, that'd be great.
yeah. So first, I think I'm just going to go through the whole list. Then we can just freestyle this and just talk about any other thing in between. So the first question here is, how did you get into music? Like,
Oh, great
just
question.
um, tell me more about yourself and how you got into music. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So my earliest memory of music that I can remember was the Beatles when I was maybe like 3 or 4 years old. There were two songs specifically. It was Help
Okay.
and Hello, Goodbye, I think it was. I remember just like standing in my kitchen hearing them when I was like 3 or 4. I just loved them. I was like, this is so cool. But I've been singing my whole life throughout like church. I was raised to go to church every weekend.
Okay.
So I would just sing in church and stuff. And then like throughout middle school and high school, I was very active in the arts. I was in choir, band. I played the trumpet. I was active in like swing choir, madrigals, and then musicals too. So performing in like musicals. Then probably like one of the most important things in my life was when I was like in middle school. Some of my neighborhood friends had an electric guitar, or two of my good friends did at their house. And so when I would hang out with them, I would be playing their electric guitar a little bit. And I was like, this is so cool. I have to get an electric guitar myself. So
Nice.
then when I was in eighth grade, so however old that is, 12 or 13 or something, then I got a Fender Squire. It was like a combo pack, came with a little amp. And so I started playing guitar. And then, I basically wrote down a huge list of every song I wanted to learn. And I played guitar tabs on like online, just learning from guitar tabs and learning from my ear. And then once I completed the list, I was like, well, what do I do next? So then I got into songwriting. So I started writing my own songs on electric guitar. And then, once I have X amount of songs in my brain, then I'm like, all right, well, what do I do next? I have to like bring them to life somehow, right? So when I was in high school, I was about like 15 or 16. I started using this program called Sony Acid Pro. I think it is still available, but it might have a different name these days. And I just started recording myself playing guitar. I knew how to play drum set. Bass, I just kind of was winging it. I was like, well, it's just a bigger guitar. So just kind of winging it and then recorded myself singing. And then did my best mixing it all. Again, I was like 16. I really had no idea what I was doing at all. Pretty much it was only just panning and volume automation. Those were the only things I did. I didn't really know anything about anything else. And then, yeah, it just kind of gradually evolved from there. When I got gradually interested in film music in around, it was like 2008, I think. Or I remember 2005 listening to a lot of Batman Begins and Van Helsing. Those two soundtracks were really good. And then in 2008 is when I started diving onto the piano and just like making my own compositions in my brain, thinking like, oh, this would be a cool movie theme. And then I mapped it out using Finale music, just like basic, just mapping it out so I could hear it back, and then I could work on little orchestrations to it. But it didn't sound like a realistic orchestra or anything like that. It was just kind of getting my ideas in like what I call the vault, just save them in the vault. Um, I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I've been involved in music ever since. 2011, I moved to Los Angeles to work in some entertainment internships there. was working on music the whole time. And that's actually where I wrote my recent symphony release, is when I was living in Los Angeles. So I wrote it all using MIDI notes, but I didn't do anything with it. So, you know, it was all written and arranged, and I really focused all my energy on the songwriting aspect of it all, but didn't really dive into perfecting it to death or anything like that. Fast forward 10 years later, 2021, 2022, I was just inspired. I'm like, you know what? I had that symphony I wrote when I was in LA, and I didn't have any projects I was working on. So I'm like, you know what? I should revisit this and try to bring it to life. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years, here and there. You know, it wasn't continuous. It was like whenever I felt inspired to work on it, that kind of thing. So, and that brings us to today.
Interesting. Interesting. I also like grew up in a church environment, and I was always around instrumentalists from a young age. Even though I'm not very good at any instruments, I'll just dabble around every instrument, dabble around the
Yeah.
piano, the guitar, the drums, and I think that really helped me also. But one thing I wished I did was like really learn an instrument, and I think that's one thing that's very important in, I won't say it's a necessary thing to become a music producer, but it's very important to, it helps in the whole composition and producing thing. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
a very interesting story.
Do you remember like your earliest memory of like music, or like the very first instrument that you picked up, anything like that?
Yeah, it was in a church. I was playing the drums. So we had this church close to my house, and I used to go there to play the drums. So
Okay.
yeah, then
Was it the drum set,
the
like an
drum set,
acoustic drum
yeah,
set?
an acoustic drum set,
Okay.
yeah. So sometimes when the drummer was not around, or if the drummer didn't come for church services, I'll just get on the drums and play. So
Nice.
then there was
Drum
this,
sets?
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
there was this time we had a close family friend live with us, and she studied music in the university. So she taught me my like to play the chords on a piano, and yeah, that's when I learned how to play the piano.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting about the piano and why it's like the ultimate instrument in my opinion is because like it's actually like a percussion instrument. So, you know, you can't really do an expressive like a horn sweep on a piano. It's all percussion. So I think that's why they teach it to so many kids at a young age, because um, it like develops your ear, but then also it's straight up percussion. Like you have to have the rhythm. So, but the cool thing about drum set, and I'm glad to hear that was like one of the first ones you did, is I did that too. Before I picked up a guitar, I actually taught myself drum set, or just the basics of drum set. Um, and that served me so incredibly well moving forward, because then when I would write stuff, it's like I can hear the drum set playing in my brain while I'm writing guitar riffs. They
Nice.
like go, it's like they communicate with each other. So learning drum set is really helpful at an early age. Sorry, my
Nice.
cats are going
Yeah.
around here.
How many do you have?
I got two cats.
Nice. So yeah, great story. So I think this is like over 15 years of experience you've gathered from, yeah.
I know, right? Yikes. Where does the time go?
Yeah.
Right, Zipper? Right,
Nice.
Zipper? Ah.
Yeah, so tell us about like your new symphony. I listened to all the tracks, and damn, very, very great tracks. So tell us about the symphony. The Okay, you already told us you made it in LA, the inspiration, the whole process, and yeah, just give me as much details as you can.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for checking it out too. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
you're welcome.
And it was a huge undertaking. Right, Zipper? Okay, I'm gonna set you back down. The yeah, the I mean the main inspiration came when I was in LA, I was full on like I wanted to be a film composer, and it was like I was going to stop at nothing to do that. It was just like all consuming. And so my idea was, oh, if I create this amazing um, thing, then people will hire me or some, just that kind of that. So that was like my inspiration or my motive, not my inspiration, but like the motivation to put it together, I should say. Um, the inspiration of it came from, a handful of different movies I'd seen over the years. I think, yeah, huge things that I remember being inspired by were like definitely a lot of like Pirates movies, Clash of the Titans by Ramin Djawadi, um, obviously a lot of John Williams stuff, Last Samurai, that was a huge one I loved. So there were tons of stuff. So from like an inspirational standpoint, from existing soundtracks that I would listen to all the time, either subconsciously made it in or whatnot. So that kind of like inspired me to write it. And like I said, I started out just focusing on the songwriting aspect of it. I wasn't worried for the first, or when I wrote the whole thing, I wasn't worried at all about sample libraries or mixing or mastering or any of that. It was just like, let's focus on almost like I was a traditional composer at a piece of paper, just mapping it all out kind of a thing. So I'm trying to think, yeah, and then I put it all together. And then, yeah, now fast forward to 21, 22, 10 years later, I'm like actually then diving into the sample libraries and all that stuff. It just took a ton of time, but trying to think of any like important things. I would usually tackle it in phases, kind of like, all right, I'm going to do all the strings modulation on my keyboard, performing all the strings lines for all of the songs. And then I do another round focused on brass. So I'd perform all of the brass lines on my keyboard. And then do another round. I just kind of keep looping like that. And then I'm trying to think, after I got everything in decent shape from like performing it and then kind of finding like percussion sample libraries and all that stuff, I would just, take it very gradually, week by week, month by month, never rushing myself, just when I felt inspired and motivated to work on it. And then I'm trying to think after that, then I think it was like, then I got into like trying to find the perfect reverb for it, which is one of those YouTube videos I posted where I kind of created a rough mix of the first song, then brought that mix into a new session, and then just did this like NCAA showdown of reverbs to try to find the perfect reverb for my symphony that I wanted. Then once I nailed that, then I went back into every mix and started actually mixing it with reverb and doing like more careful level stuff, more careful mixing stuff, applying EQ and compression when needed and such like that. So yeah, just kind of taking it in waves. And then finally, before mastering, I think I would like maybe give my ears a break for a week or something and then hop into mastering, or even master like a track and then or one of the songs and then wait for another week and then revisit it or something and make sure I still liked what I did. And for the mastering of this symphony, I did not do any changes per song. So my mastering chain per song is exactly identical. And I did that intentionally so that it would be as if string section, I remember a number being like negative 17 dB was like the kind of like the rough point of where the strings were. So I'd make sure as a starting point for all the subsequent songs, they'd also be at around negative 17 dB so that the whole thing could flow pretty smoothly. But yeah, that's about it. And one cool tip I wanted to share with folks is I split out the whole thing into its different songs. I had like 11 songs or movements, or whatever you want to call them. But the last second before publishing it on YouTube, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna combine them all together into one giant YouTube video, which is like a 45-minute YouTube video. And just a tip for viewers out there, that video has gotten more YouTube views than any of the other individual songs. So I think I'm going to start doing that as I proceed forward with all my releases of rock records, EPs, orchestral stuff. I think I'm always going to just make a giant YouTube video that's got all of the songs in it.
Yeah,
So,
that's a very great idea. I think that's one of the reasons I asked you initially if you did the whole thing in one project, because the mixing and mastering sounded very consistent throughout all the tracks. So that's
oh,
why I was
nice.
wondering
Okay.
if you did everything in one project. But very nice. Very
Yeah,
nice.
you caught that. I think if in one giant project, my computer would have exploded because it was definitely in the last movement. I know like 174 tracks, and it was, certain days my computer would not make it through the song, and I would just be like, I would just have to like, it was like a crapshoot. But then it made it through eventually. But yeah, I'm excited to get a new computer at some point. Right now, I'm on an iMac 2015 on Mojave 10.14. It's at 32 gigabytes of RAM, but
Okay.
I know the new iMacs you can manually put in 128 gigabytes of RAM. So
Nice.
that would just be like a NASA level computer, pretty much.
Nice.
So that'll be cool when the time comes,
Yeah. Yeah. So nice. It was a very, very inspiring EP to album to listen to. I think you were inspired by the Greek methodology and the Greek gods. Yeah. So
Oh, yeah. I forgot to talk about that, I suppose, because back in 2008, I was studying and I was in a creative writing class,
okay.
and they had us just write a handful of short stories throughout the semester, and I made all of mine just like Greek mythology adventure stories with characters like Atlas, Pleione, Poseidon, stuff like that. And so that was my story. The little fictional short story that I created in this class, that was the story that I was telling through this symphony per se.
Nice.
Glad you reminded me of that. I
Nice.
forgot about that part.
Nice. Very inspiring. I've always thought of, because in Africa, in the Yoruba tribe, there are these Yoruba gods too, and they are very, very interesting stories. And I've always thought of creating like music to fit that, and this listening to your work was very, very inspiring.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't know much about African gods and goddesses, things like that. I'm just familiar with Greek and Norse mythology, that kind of stuff. So that would be really cool if you did that.
Yeah. Maybe I'll try that out. I'll try that out and see if that works out. Nice. So, how has it been like working in the music industry and the film industry in general? So,
Oh, sure.
yeah.
I have not had much experience scoring for films. I did a film, I've done a handful of like student films over the years and just like really short things for the past, I don't know, like 10 to 15 years or something. But I did score like a feature film once, but it was just a very poor experience. Yeah, it was discouraging for me. So I haven't actively pursued trying to score films since then. Maybe someday I'll be re-inspired. Um, but it was really, and I don't want to be a downer for all the folks out there who want to um, score films. I think you absolutely should. Um, but yeah, I guess just for me, my own personal experience, it didn't go so well. But where I have had more fun and more success is doing tracks for music libraries. That's like more my speed, and I think that's been more enjoyable for me. And I've had much more success in that realm. Um, I was lucky back in 2012, 2013. I connected with a music library in New York, and I did a bunch of tracks for them over the years. But then got bought out by a bigger music library, and so I kind of left. I'm pretty sure I lost all my contact, or I'll have to reach out to the new library. I haven't done that yet, but I'll reach out to them and see if I have any connections in that library again. But
Yeah, sure.
so I don't pursue it too much, but I'm gonna try again to get back into music library stuff because I've had the most success there. With just like definitely financial success, most success there. I'm trying to think music industry stuff for my rock stuff. I also make rock and grunge records for fun. I have like no followers there, so I don't have much good advice at all in that realm. But I love doing it, and I'll keep working on rock records probably till the day I die, just because it's a lot of fun, and that's like they're just so much fun to assemble. I love putting that stuff together. So,
Nice. So
but
was
yeah, I don't have the best or too much advice about music industry stuff in all honesty.
yeah. So was there like any particular thing off-putting about the film industry that you didn't like?
Yeah, or I won't even generalize it as the film industry. It was just kind of like this one director I was working with where um I'd say I was just really struggling to understand um what he was trying to communicate. I think there's just like a lot of miscommunication going on. And then I learned the hard way about picture lock. It's something everyone should probably read about or learn about, where it's like, I think, you want the picture fully locked, and then composers should start working on it. Because what happened was I did a lot of work for the film. I did a bunch of cues for a different bunch of scenes. Um, but I'm pretty sure he said picture lock, and that's what added to the frustration of this. I would have been on top of that. So I think what happened was I think the director um, went, I think there was picture lock. I did the score, and then he's like, "Oh, I got feedback from my producers that they want to cut and change these things." So then, no, then I had to do more work and write more cues, and then I had to do like a lot of chopping up of my existing cues. Like taking out like 15-second chunks, and then just a not well organized, just like not a great thing. So the advice would be make sure your director is 100% on that picture lock, and then you can compose and probably have much more fun with it than I did.
Nice. Thank you for that. So yeah, um, like how do you like balance doing all these things together? I know you're into like web development, you have a business there, Audiopeeps, composing music, and how do you balance everything together and all the
Yeah, that's a great
aspects of your
question.
life also?
Yeah, my regular 9 to 5 is a job as a software tester. I've
Okay.
been doing that professionally since 2014. I had a break in between where I was living and working in New York City, but now I'm back as a software tester at a tech company. So that's similar to a lot of the web design stuff that I like to do for fun. The web design stuff I jumped into last February, been pretty much just about a year ago, and was just really captivated by it. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, and I think I've been reading a lot about it. I think I have a good eye for it, and I'm pretty sensible about it, and that kind of stuff. And what's cool, what I like about having multiple different hobbies is it's kind of like, you take one away for a while, and then, a few weeks will go by, and I'm like more inspired to work on that hobby now. And then a month will go by, and then I'm like, okay, I'm inspired to go on this hobby, and I just kind of do this dance. I like having multiple creative things simultaneously. If it were only music, then if I hit writer's block, then I'm kind of stuck and I don't have any kind of other creative outlets. So that's why I like having a couple different creative things that are unrelated to each other.
Nice. I like that. So it's,
Yeah.
I think that's something I should do more because I always like try to do everything I do at the same time. So yes, I think I should leave more like space to focus on on something, then um do something else for a while before I get back to like music or something like that. I think that will help. Yeah.
It could help. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for me, it's usually might be like something as simple as like for 1 week work on this creative thing and the next week, or it might be like for this whole month I'll work on this thing and then the next month I'll work on this thing. But there's no, I don't follow any kind of schedule or anything like that. It's just whatever the day inspires, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, tell us more about like Audio Peeps and also your website business.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Audiopeeps is something where yeah, I was basically I had this idea a little bit over a year ago where I was thinking like I know that there's such a monstrous audio community with a lot of people with a lot of skills and a lot of specialities. Um, and so basically, the vision of the site came to me where I'm like, oh, that would be really cool to be able to easily and like efficiently, really fast search and filter for people based on their specialities. I was thinking of getting even really specific, like things like if you're really knowledgeable about parallel compression or bus compression or maybe stereo imaging or mid-side EQ, kind of like really specific stuff. That's where I was thinking it'd be really cool to search on that. And so then, yeah, I just kind of designed the site using Wix and basically dove into all of their functionality. And I ended up learning like tons of stuff about Wix.
Nice.
And that's where it became a lot of fun for me. I'm like, oh, this is really fun. Did a tiny little bit of coding on the Audio Peeps so that now the site is fully automated, which is pretty sweet. So, somebody can now go on, they can sign up, create an account, create their Peep page, show up in the filtering engine on the home page, and make modifications all on their own. And I, as the site owner, don't have to do anything anymore. It just kind of like runs itself, which is really cool. Took a little bit of work and just a little coding example stuff. And then from there, yeah, I started making other, Wix sites. I have like a Wix site for my own. It's called tcfaudio.com, and that's like my main music hub for all my music stuff. I made another website called Drink Display where it's the same thing as kind of Audio Peeps, where you can use these different filter buttons based on ingredients, and it'll spit out different cocktails that you can make with the ingredients.
Interesting.
So if you're like you're looking in your cabinet, you're like, I only have whiskey, amaretto, and Sprite, or and like cherries. Like, what different combinations of drinks can I make? And you type in those, push those ingredients, and the website will spit out like 5 different cocktails that you could try making with it. So
Nice.
that was a fun site to put together. It has the recipes too. Um, and yeah, just getting intrigued by all that stuff. And I've created my website Wildcat, just to offer my services. And it goes hand in hand with my software testing. I've been able to help a good amount of people so far with just like a broad critique of their current website and just be like, hey, here's some aesthetics things, here's some usability things, maybe some functional issues, and then also maybe make suggestions or something where it's like, I'm uh, maybe try this or that, or so that's been a lot of fun. And yeah,
Nice.
so
Nice. Your
that's about
feedback.
it.
Yeah. Nice. I love the idea of Audio Peeps, and I've been sharing it with as many people as I can. So
Awesome.
good work.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
You're welcome. And also, your feedback for my own website was very, very helpful. I started working on some of the things you suggested. I use
Okay, excellent.
WordPress for my sites, and yeah, I've started implementing some of the things you suggested. So thanks for that. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Of course.
nice. So, like, do you have any advice for beginners or anyone getting started with music? With music first, then with the um, film industry, music composition, and just composing orchestral stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, composing orchestral stuff. Ooh, just gonna think if you're like really first starting out, the first things that come to mind, this is a little bit further down the road, but like more in the mixing and mastering stage, I guess, for something I learned that I do, and I put it in one of my recent YouTube videos too, is if you have a session with like tons of tracks, which you can oftentimes do in orchestral stuff, um, something that's worked for me personally is just bringing down all of the volume faders quite a bit. So, like every track might be like -15 or -20 decibels to start. And then from there, then when I was mixing it, I wouldn't have to worry about the master fader digitally clipping or getting too hot or, going in the red or anything. And I could comfortably bring things up and down in volume however I wanted without having to worry about blowing up the speakers or whatnot or something. So that kind of changed my whole approach to mixing orchestral stuff. Because vice versa, I had everything too hot and I'd be like, oh, I brought this thing up. Well, now do I bring everything else down, or do, is kind of messy. So I like my new approach better. And then after that's all done, if there's a ton of headroom, then I can just bring everything up, maybe using like a maximizer or something like that, or getting it more to a volume competitive or volume appropriate level. As far as the actual songwriting goes, I don't have too many things to think of, but I can take you back in time to, for me, it was like at the piano, trying to think of a memorable little melody, just really basic, plunking out a melody of some sort. And I'm not a piano player, so it was just like kind of bass notes per se, figuring out the underlying cool bass notes. And then I put them in like my vault. And then from there, if I down the road, I'm like, you know what, I like this melody. I'd like to expand upon this. Then I'll like bring that melody into like a Logic Pro session, and then start bringing in a bunch of like CPU light instruments, of strings, horns, woodwinds, percussion, things that won't crash my computer, and things that won't distract me with mixing or mastering. It helps me to focus strictly on the whole composing, arranging, songwriting part of it, and then start layering in stuff. So I have that melody, and then it would be like, well, is there anything that can dance with this? Anything that can complement this? That's hard to explain. I guess that just takes your own ears and your own creativity and such. But I know, like listening to John Williams, like if you just listen to the credits of Harry Potter 1, 2, and 3, it's, if you ever need like inspiration for orchestration and arrangement, it's just the most wildly like unbelievable work of those 3 scores and those credits. You can just hear stuff going everywhere. And what's cool is, especially with John Williams, like it never sounds forced. It always sounds really organic and natural. It never sounds like, I don't know how to describe it, but it never sounds like John Williams is trying to show off or something. It just sounds like perfect. It's like it's all exactly how it's meant to be. So
Nice.
that's about what I could think of for trying to do more arrangement and orchestration stuff. And um, yeah, I don't know. So
I think those are great tips. Yeah. Do you have like any resource or tutorial or course or school recommendation for people that want to like go through that route?
I don't actually. I'm all just self-taught. Um, I I had a great, like I said, I had a great, um, and I had a fortunate upbringing at the school I went to. It was a public school, and it had great support of the arts. So, and the village I grew up in, the the founders of the village and everything were like really supportive of the arts. So I've been surrounded by them since I was a really little kid. So I definitely am thankful to them for all of that. That kind of got embedded into me. But then as far as the film music stuff, um, Yeah, I don't have any like recommendations on that. My progression was pretty much just like, yeah, on the piano, then like finale music, mapping it out a little bit. Then I remember visiting my friend Stephen Lukács' apartment, and he showed me Logic Pro. This was in 2010. Oh no, 2009. I can't remember. Somewhere back then. So then he showed me this, and he was showing me sample libraries. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. So then I got Logic Pro. I purchased. I do recommend East West's Complete Composer Collection. I don't know if they still have that, but they have one called Symphonic Orchestra. Um, and man, those samples and those recordings, especially the percussion and especially the brass, those are really useful. And I still use them. I'm still using them recently, and those samples are like 15 years old. They were really good. So um, that that was like kind of a schooling,
Yeah.
just like diving into this stuff, experimenting, getting lost in it, that kind of stuff. And then, it gradually becomes an addiction. And then you're like, you know what? I need this other sample library. And now I need this one. And you just kind of gradually accumulate this stuff over time. Um, yeah. And then just listening to a lot of scores. 50% of all the music I listen to is like movie soundtracks, and the other 50% is like grunge and rock and stuff.
Nice.
So just listening a lot is kind of like my school, I guess.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. So, like, what do you plan for the future? Are there any projects you want to work on this year or in the coming years?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I always have stuff in my brain that's swimming around. I have the next project I'm working on um is some orchestral stuff, but I'm weaving in some synth stuff from Omnisphere, and also some stuff from Heaviosity Damage. And it's basically I'm taking a different approach than my symphony, where my symphony was like, really carefully perfecting it to death. And this album, I'm intentionally doing like an instinctual, you know, more quick, rapid fire attack, not attack, but like approach. Um, and just trying to produce it, not trying to rush it, but just pumping out some songs more instinctively, just see what happens, and then assemble it relatively quickly. Um, so I hope to release that maybe in by the summertime or early fall if all goes well or something. And I'd also like to reach out to some sample libraries too, to see if anyone's interested in it. Apart from that, I have a new grunge metal EP. It's a 4-song thing. It's in my brain right now, and I know all the guitar riffs and everything. So after I finish the orchestral thing, I'll tackle that next.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I like that. I can't wait to listen to uh, this one. I can't wait to listen to this new project you have. Very,
Yeah, it'll be fun.
yeah. I also listen to your serial projects.
Oh yeah, Serial
Yeah,
Time, the musical.
yeah. Nice.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a musical about cereal mascots.
So yeah, I think I've exhausted all my questions. Yeah. So is there any other thing you want to talk about or share?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Um, if there's any like, just trying to think for folks like releasing material. Yeah, the main takeaways. Like I said, that YouTube thing. Um, I'm gonna always make a video that's like the whole collective thing. Uh, I'm approaching it from like a community standpoint. So in all my YouTube videos, I'm trying to be fully transparent. So every single one, I list out exactly the sample libraries I used, or like gear I used, or mixing, mastering plugins I used. So I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. I've posted a few like behind the scenes thing of my symphony in some Facebook groups, and people loved them there. I've
Nice.
just been getting like tons of feedback in the Facebook groups, One of them's like a composer film network group or
Please,
something,
yeah,
and
send me the
another one
link
is
so
just
that if
like
you can.
I'm sorry.
Please send me the link to the group if you can later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a good group. Yeah, I think you'll like it a lot. It's a lot of cool conversations. And then another group is just like some random music producers group. It's just kind of like an overarching, like if you have new songs or mixing and mastering or songwriting, it's kind of like everything. So I shared it in those two groups. So I encourage people, if you have stuff you're working on, I think people really love behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I've noticed a trend where if somebody posts something in a Facebook group and they're like, check out my new song and a YouTube link to it, that I think maybe it's an algorithm thing too that gets very low attention. But if you post like some sort of behind the scenes clip and be like, this is what I was working on today, here's a little blurb of it. You can see the tracks moving up and down. It's People love that stuff. So that's something useful I've been learning to
Interesting.
share with the community, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
You're sharing the process. I think people enjoy the process better than the results. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. Nice. Yeah. So
But yeah, that's about all I had. So
yeah. So awesome. It's very good finally talking with you, and your work has inspired me. And yeah, thanks for all the tips you've always given me since the first time you contacted me, and they've been really, really helpful. So thank you very much for
yeah, my pleasure. It's been
everything.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's been awesome knowing you. So it's finally cool to connect
Yes.
face to face too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
if
thank
you
you.
want to chat, a little bit after
Sure. Sure.
recording is done.
So I'm
Um,
going to end the live stream now.
oh, cool. We're live.
Yeah. But it's
Nice.
unlisted.